So, I guess there's no more ignoring it. The conversation has gotten so big over the past few days that we gotta talk about these American captains playing in Ontario hockey markets. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Auston Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators. Both of these guys are captains of teams that are going through it right now. Auston Matthews and the Maple Leafs. Obviously, Matthews ain't playing anymore. He got taken out by Radko Gudas. He finished off the year with 53 points in 60 games. Literally the worst producing season Matthews has ever had at the National Hockey League level. Goal-wise, points-wise, the whole 9 yards. Meanwhile, you have Brady Tkachuk going out there and playing for an Ottawa Senators team that unfortunately hasn't really been getting as much as they should be from everybody involved as of late. The goaltending is up and down. Linus Ullmark is available some nights, not available others. He's supposed to be the main guy, but as Travis Green was putting it, he's not able to play. Sometimes. Who knows? Whether or not this was a direct element that was alluded to by Brady's dad, Keith, on the podcast is an entirely other separate issue, but we can bring this up as a potential talking point. Because, unfortunately, the Sens are in a playoff hunt, and they've lost 4 out of their last 5. Their win against Buffalo was really good, though. Brady Tkachuk had an assist, he had 7 penalty minutes, they won 4-1, Linus Ullmark was the difference between a very, very close game that could have gone either way. The Sabres are a good team that just isn't getting the best out of their guys at the moment. So, with that said, speaking about Auston Matthews and all the uncertainty about his future because his team didn't stand up for him and they're going through a rebuild, with that said, on Brady Tkachuk and the disappointment that Sens fans, the team itself, they're all probably feeling this right now. Let's dive into this comment made by Jack Jablonski on Twitter. You had, firstly, this comment by, I believe it's Mike Rupp? Yeah, Mike Rupp on Twitter, who went out there and spoke about this. Brady Tkachuk is not going to finish his contract in Ottawa. Auston Matthews, in my opinion, will not be a Maple Leaf for his entire career. This was mentioned by Rupp on the Sports on Prime Canada Twitter account, and it was then responded to by Jack Jablonski, who does a lot of stuff on Twitter. He's got 44,000 followers, and he is a paralyzed hockey player. He said this, I'm calling it now. I wholeheartedly believe either Auston Matthews or Brady Tkachuk will be in a Minnesota Wild jersey come next season. Both fit perfectly, and they have a relationship with Bill Guerin, whom we know isn't afraid to swing big. Now, this, of course, is potentially the next domino to fall for these American captains on Canadian teams. First, it was Matthew Tkachuk. He wasn't a captain, but similar story happened with him and Johnny Gaudreau back in the day. You could say that's the prequel to all of this. The real first happened earlier this December when Vancouver Canucks superstar Quinn Hughes demanded a trade and he got sent over to Minnesota. Now, the Olympics just happened. You had Hughes, Brady, and Matthews all going out there and having a good time together. You can probably bet there was a conversation or 2 or 3 or 4 between either Quinn and Auston or Quinn and Brady that allowed Quinn to express, hey, it's pretty good in Minnesota. That allowed any of these other American guys who play in American markets to say things like, hey, you're still in Toronto? Man, the media must be tough there, eh? Oh, you're still in Ottawa? Man, must be tough missing the playoffs every year with all that pressure, right? And you think about these American dudes that love America. We saw this at the Olympics. We saw the patriotism and we saw everything else in between there. The idea that an American team knocking on either Toronto or Ottawa's door is all that needs to happen for the floodgates to open. I would honestly subscribe to that idea. And the notion that Minnesota could be that team, it's something that I definitely think is worthwhile to think about, especially when you consider the fact that Quinn has a lot of power in this situation. Quinn Hughes has a lot of influence, and he probably can do some convincing to one Auston or Brady. And we've seen this based off of how all these guys have interacted with each other in the past. Quinn Hughes has got buddies, man. Bill Guerin has got buddies. And so if you go over into the replies, the Twitter sphere goes out there and asks questions like, hey, the only issue is who do they give up? What's the return? Nobody saw Hughes going to Minnesota either. There is a question on whether or not the Wild have enough money. Well, guess what? They have a projected $43 million in cap space this offseason, including the Kaprizov extension. And the only major UFAs are Zuccarello and Tarasenko. The Wild can absolutely afford one of Matthews or Brady. Now, the fact that we also saw Matthew Tkachuk do essentially this exact same thing, except Matthew was in a different situation because he was in the midst of a contract negotiation. Okay, maybe it's not exactly the same thing, but this abandoning a Canadian team to go play in the States thing, that's what happened. And the fact that Matthew was able to go to a franchise that allowed him to win 2 straight Stanley Cups and make the finals 3 times in a row, you gotta think that that element of the conversation probably helps Matthews or Brady's case when it comes to deciding to leave their current teams. Not that these Canadian teams are bad necessarily, but it's just, they're not winners. And Quinn Hughes did the exact same thing with Vancouver. They're not winners. So he didn't want to stay. He wanted to go to a team where he could comfortably stay and be like, yeah, I think we can win here. I think the Minnesota Wild can win every single year. I want to stay here because I think they can win. You didn't see any of that in Vancouver. And now, I'm not going to say that Brady Tkachuk and Auston Matthews, they don't represent their cities well. Honestly, I'm not too educated on that. I think that Quinn Hughes and what he was bringing to Vancouver was not at all fitting for what a captain of the Vancouver Canucks should be like and talk like in the media and when he's facing the public, etc., etc. I don't think he did a good job in that respect. Obviously, fantastic player. Brady Tkachuk, Auston Matthews, who really knows? But the idea that either of these guys could both be on the block next season, or next offseason, I guess, and Minnesota could come knocking on their door, that's something that I do think is reasonable and a definite positive conversation that is worth having at this stage in the season. So with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Auston Matthews? How do you feel about the Quinn Hughes, Brady Tkachuk conversation, whether or not this actually does make sense here? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.